It's my pleasure to announce our next speaker, Dr. Ingrid Tomkowiak, Professor of Popular Literature and Media at the Institute of Social Anthropology and Popular Culture Studies at the University of Zurich. Ingrid is a specialist in media for children and young adults. Her research focuses on children's classics and their film adaptations, as well as on bestsellers and blockbusters. I admire Ingrid's interdisciplinary approach to literature, her attention not only to literary work themselves, but also to their context and their reception, or to the crossroads between literature and other fields of knowledge. I believe we share our view on the immense role literature has in both understanding and codifying the world we live in. So, please, Ingrid.
Thank you very much, and hello to you all, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here again in this beautiful city and on this conference. Old people are quite common in children's literature, and it seems that there is a special bond between children and the elderly. But why is that? An important tenet in contemporary age studies is that age and the life course are not only a biological process, but also socially constructed. As age critic Margaret Gullett puts it, human beings are aged by culture. Nevertheless, despite such constructivist scholarship, the sense of childhood as a ubiquitous and fundamental category of human life has proved remarkably resilient. Belief in the universal and unchanging essence of childhood can make all sorts of cultural arrangements and power structures appear natural. The same is true for concepts of senescence, of age, old age. Gullett is particularly concerned with the decline narrative that dominates Western thinking. Growing old is depicted as an unpleasant ride downhill, with death looming at the bottom. This model empowers youth at the expense of the elderly. But it is not the only trope of old age you find in literature and media, as Vanessa Joosen has shown. She's a literary critic. Age studies can help to contextualize the features of old age as it is evoked for children. Conversely, age critics may discover in children's media a source for exploring how age-related norms are taught to younger generations. As cultural artifacts with ideological and didactic dimensions, children's books can transmit ageist ideas, but they also can be used to counteract the symbolic annihilation of the elderly and foster respect for diversity instead. In the following, I am going to concentrate on Johanna Spyri's famous novel Heidi, published in 2 volumes in 1880 and 1881. This novel can be regarded as a pattern for different role models of old age as they appear in children's literature until now. Heidi has been adapted to film many times. Since there's no time for a detailed analysis now of the films, I will use some film clips only to illustrate how they depict old age. In the story of Heidi, the heroine finds happiness in a simple life with her grandfather in the Swiss mountains. Against her will, she is taken to the rich family Sesemann in Frankfurt to be Clara's, a lame girl's, companion. While Clara and Heidi are immediately fond of each other, the housekeeper, Fräulein Rottenmeier, offers little understanding for Heidi's character and strives hard to teach her bourgeois virtues and manners. By contrast, Clara's grandmother, Grandmama Sesemann, takes Heidi in her care, teaching her to read and explaining to her the importance of faith in God. But Heidi suffers from being alienated from nature, as well as being othered, and gets homesick. She only recovers when she returns to the mountains, where she works hard, keeping house for grandfather. But having experienced a different life abroad has broadened Heidi's perspective and empowers her to change people's life. She manages to win almost everyone's heart, heal her grandfather's and Dr. Claessen's wounded souls, cure her friend Clara's paralyzed legs, educate Peter the goatherd, and help his poor blind grandmother. She is now able to read hymns to her and persuades grandfather to return to the church and the people in the village. Johanna Spyri played a pioneering role in children's literature by propagating respect for the child as a child. In order to do so, the author chose a plot and setting where main character Heidi, who stands in the romantic tradition of the divine child, has to interact with the elderly. She takes a liking to several people from her grandfather's generation, and they too are very fond of her. It could be argued that these same people use and even exploit Heidi for their own benefit rather than hers. In my paper, I will relate this paradox to the images of the child and old age as they are constructed by the author. I will show how in this novel the elderly respond to this child of nature and how finally they quasi-interact in synergism to promote Heidi's development, with each representing their own educational approaches and worldviews. With Heidi, Spyri created an archetypal figure. Heidi represents what is good and noble in humanity. She is selfless and compassionate. She stands for a healthy life in harmony with nature and embodies authenticity and unspoiled purity. Heidi reminds us of the divine child as it emerged in early Romanticism. According to this view, childhood is a revocation of the state of nature and the childlike state of humankind. It has little to do with the lived experience of childhood at the time, but is rather a glorifying construct. The child becomes a symbolic figure for the qualities desired by the adult, who is alienated from true reality and, as Vanessa Josen points out, downgraded in symbolic value. Spyri's evocation of childhood, however, not only draws on the romantic tradition of the mystical divine child, but also on the cultural anthropological reflections of Rousseau and Herder, which are rooted in the Enlightenment. Rousseau advocated the idea of a natural system of education. The savage man and the true child share a strong and independent character, deeply solitary in nature. For Herder, in contrast, a child is in need of family. In his view, children are affectionate, willing to submit and fit in, trusting in authority, highly impressionable, receptive and eager to learn. In other words, the exact opposite of Rousseau's independent and solitary child. Yet Spyri is perfectly able to reconcile both in the figure of Heidi. While Heidi enjoys a model of natural education in the mountains, guided by her grandfather, in accordance with Rousseau, she also develops a sense of religion which at the beginning tends to be oriented towards her intense experiences of nature in an all-embracing manner. Once, Grandmama Sesemann has instilled in Heidi a belief in God and read with her the parable of the prodigal son, her devotion to God is expressed far more directly. The early romantic topos of the divine child is merged with the late romantic motif of the devout child. With the conversion of grandfather, now using the parable of the prodigal son herself, Heidi acts as a missionary at last. Almost all the relationships that Heidi maintains are with people who are elderly, sick or social outcasts, backward in their development or suffering from hunger. She offers comfort, helps them reintegrate in the community, or provides them with instruction or with food. One blatant example is Dr. Claessen's request to Heidi at the end of his visit to the mountains. I quote, "If I am ever sick and alone, will you come to me then and stay with me? Can I think that then someone will care for me and love me?" End of quote. And Heidi is willing to accompany him to Frankfurt at once. At the very end of the book, the doctor's claim to Heidi is once again formulated in an explicit manner. Quote, "So I have also my right in our Heidi, and can hope that she will care for me in my old age and stay with me. This is my greatest desire." End of quote. The supposed happy end to the story, if we take it to its conclusion, becomes the menacing curse of a woman's unfulfilled life. Elderly characters play a part in many children's books. As Josen points out, they often describe an alliance between young and elderly characters. She also recognizes mainly 4 ageist tropes in children's literature: the decline narrative, the infantilized senior, the disregard of the old body, and the wise old mentor. In addition, she addresses an unfortunate seesaw effect that appears in the emancipation of the young and the elderly and downgrades the generation in between, which is at best absent from the intimate moments and more often depicted as shallow, preoccupied, unhappy, and unimaginative. In the novel, Heidi's development takes place in a sphere in which grandfather, Peter's blind grandmother, and grandmama Sesemann interact in synergism. The 3 representatives of grandfather's generation, on which I shall focus now, each deal with Heidi in a very different manner, and so contribute to the further development of her personality in their own unique ways. Let us first look at grandfather. One of the villagers sketches a rather negative picture of his character to Heidi's Aunt Dete. I quote, "He will have nothing to do with a living soul. From one end of the year to the other he never sets foot in a church, and if once in a 12-month he comes down with his thick staff, everyone keeps out of his way and is afraid of him. With his heavy grey eyebrows and his tremendous beard, he looks like a heathen and a savage, and people are glad enough not to meet him alone." End of quote. As an outsider with a discreditable past and an old man, he does not initially seem the ideal person to whom to entrust the care of a child. But while he does not care about the people in the village, he apparently knows exactly what Heidi needs to be happy. After initial difficulties, he lovingly cares for Heidi and becomes the father figure the little girl has always lacked. Grandfather is modeled on the romantic figure of a guardian who intentionally refrains from acting as an educator. If the children's friend of 18th century Enlightenment was a person who accompanied them on their entry into the world of adults, the ideal adult companion of the Romantics is someone who is privy to the secrets of childhood and protects its world from assaults by education-based society. In contrast to the enlightened children's friend, the romantic figure is an outsider to the worlds of adults. How could he otherwise be an accomplice to childhood, which is diametrically opposed to the principles of modern-day life? When Heidi first goes to live with grandfather in the mountains, he is still very brusque and shows little interest in the child. However, he observes her closely, helps where necessary, and rejoices in her independence. They are soon in agreement, each engaging and responding to each other, avoiding conflict. Grandfather provides Heidi with food and care. He also tells Heidi everything she wants to know about nature and mountain life. He represents the wise old man of the mountains, who passes on his knowledge about animals, herbs, and the stars to his granddaughter. Grandfather considers it important to protect little Heidi from external influences which might accelerate or advance the natural process of her development. The relationship between Heidi and her grandfather can be attributed to the topos of the intuitive understanding between children and the elderly, which is frequently found in children's literature. A common experience as both the very young and the very old live on the fringes of active society. The orphan and the lonely old man belong together, not just through their family ties. Both have something elemental and savage about them. Regarding the ageist tropes that Josen distinguishes in children's literature, grandfather seems to be a prototype of the wise old mentor. Spiri's novel suggests that Heidi both gives and takes from her intergenerational friendships with her grandfather, Grandmama Sesemann, and Peter's grandmother, making their relationship complementary rather than exploitative. Each connection between Heidi and the three elderly figures is based on different traits, which all lead to a mutually reinforcing exchange of goods, knowledge, virtues, or acts of care. The connection between Heidi and grandfather arises from a shared love of nature and the appreciation of a simple lifestyle. He provides her with food and shelter and offers her the temporary isolation from urban life that allows her to thrive in nature freely and carelessly as she grows up from a toddler to a young child. In her turn, Heidi reinstalls in grandfather an interest in other human beings, and ultimately in God, fulfilling the role of a child redeemer who pulls the old man out of his social isolation and spiritual dearth. From Grandmama Sesemann, Heidi receives not only the comfort of kind company, but also the gifts of literacy and Christianity. From her repeated invitations, it can be derived that the old lady enjoys Heidi's company, in contrast to that of the strict middle-aged Fräulein Rottenmeier, whom, as in the seesaw effect, is downgraded against her.
You can still change your mind and come with us, you know.
The novel spells out that Grandmama Sesemann is laughing with satisfaction at being complimented on Heidi's progress in reading. The successful teaching experience is thus presented as equally rewarding for both the elderly tutor and the learning child. Moreover, thanks to Heidi, Grandmama Sesemann can also rejoice in the natural beauty of the Alps when she visits her former pupil. Here, Grandmama Sesemann is not so much a fairy tale enchantress, as Henneberg suggests, but enchanted herself. The experience draws from the otherwise so composed figure of the grandmama a reaction that also puts into perspective her wisdom as an elderly tutor. She is, after all, not too old for new experiences herself, and her delight in the new experience resembles Heidi's childlike enthusiasm at seeing the world with fresh eyes. Finally, Grandmama is described as rejoicing in the progress of Clara's health and the daily letters that the two girls write to her to keep her up to date on the progress, reinforcing once again the impression that both the children and the elderly lady are rewarded by their friendship. Grandmama Sesemann offers a powerful counterbalance to the decline narrative that is suggested by the illness of Peter's grandmother. Although the text does acknowledge the limits of Grandmama's physical ability, for instance in her inability to climb the mountain on a regular basis, it mostly stresses the authority that she holds and the joy that she derives from new experiences and friendship. The relationship between Heidi and grandmama seems to be mirrored in the way that Heidi cares and provides comfort for Peter's grandmother, who is alienated from society through her illness. It is in this relationship that a sense of entitlement becomes most pronounced, and that Heidi adopts the position of a giver more obviously than in the relationship with grandfather and grandmother Sesemann. From Peter's blind grandmother, however, Heidi discovers the comfort offered by the recitation of religious literature. In this moment, her adoration of nature, as taught by grandfather, and her experience of literacy, learned from grandmother Mama Sesemann, converge, and the elderly's task of Heidi's education is fulfilled. Thank you very much.